done. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the amazing people on LinkedIn right now. Welcome to the third episode from Global S&OP Community, brought to you by Ahmed Khalid and my co-host Ahmed Al-Hamamsi. Welcome,
Hello
Ahmed.
and welcome, everybody. Hi, Ahmed. How are you doing? Tell us, please, where are you tuning in from? And welcome to the Global S&OP Community. Of course, as we always say, it's knowledge you won't find in books. It's collaborative experience between us and you, all the audience, and our guests. So, Ahmed, please tell us about our guest today, please.
For sure. Before we move and jump into our guest, let me stress again into our global community. Knowledge you will not find in books. Our mission, just to let you know, is to build a global community of supply chain, marketing, trade marketing, sales, finance people that will change the world of S&OP. Where everyone will be able to share his unique voice, stories, knowledge, struggles, and experience, because we believe that everyone has something to provide to this world. And today's topic is very compelling to most people. And our topic today is more related into managing the constrained demand from the manufacturing lens. And let me tell you that we have a unique guest, very unique guest today, who's well known by his great experience in manufacturing industry. He started his career at the upstream, from quality assurance, production, engineering, maintenance, lean manufacturing, TPM, then being a factory manager, then being a supply chain director for one of the best multinational companies. And then he got being a regional supply chain director for the same company. And then he is now a manufacturing consultant who transformed factories towards the strategical growth. Can I ask you, please, before we go and introduce our lovely guest, we need to have little bit applause. Hussein
Okay. You caught me on this.
Welcome, Hussein.
Well, great. It doesn't feel virtual anymore, guys. I mean, it feels like we're like in the same room. You got it all there.
Hi, Hussein. How are you?
Ahmed. Great to be with you guys as always. And thank you for the introduction. Thank you for being part of your show today. And hopefully it will be a very good discussion with all the audience and with you guys.
It's a real pleasure, Hussein, and I believe, as I told you, that many people are asking too much about this episode today. So I need your support. If you can give us a little bit for people that they want to know you, a little bit about yourself in your amazing manufacturing experience.
Sure. So in a nutshell, I'm a supply guy. I'm a supply guy, end-to-end supply guy. So probably I did it all. Operationally, strategically, and in every single step of the supply chain. I see myself as a problem solver. So probably this is all what we do in our businesses. We're there to solve problems, and it's kind of a passion. I've did different roles in different multinationals. I did in service companies. I did a few jobs as well in the educational side of. So I used to be a teaching assistant at the beginning of my career. Worked for Danone and great 17 years as well in Mars. So that's basically what I do. So I did R&D, industrial engineering, like you said, Ahmed, operations, supply chain, production management, plant director in different geographies in Southern Egypt as well.
Great. I think we have the best guest today to speak about our topic, Ahmed, about supply issues in S&OP and all that.
That's why it will be a hot topic today. That's why. So before we jump into the core discussion, let's welcome our beautiful audience. So we have Amina. Thank you, Amina, for being there.
Thank you for joining us.
Our lovely friend Mu'taz Mustafa. Thank you for being there, Mu'taz. We have also Shahid Ibrahim. Shahid Ibrahim. And we have Tahira Saeed. Hello, everyone.
Awesome.
Nice to see you in
South Africa. Great. Thank you.
Yes. We have Muhyidul Islam. Thank you for being there. Also,
friend
we
of
have
the show. Thank you.
our lovely audience as usual. We have Lawrence from Nigeria, our
Thank
friend.
you, Lawrence. Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
for being there. We have also Kevin Wallace. Good morning.
Wallace.
As I told you at the beginning, maybe good morning, good evening,
Good
good
evening.
afternoon. You never know. Nice to have you here. We have our lovely friend also, Abdelaziz Al Kharaif. Thank you, man, for
Aziz.
yes.
Thank you.
And we have Ibrahim Al Husseini. So,
Hi,
as usual,
Wow.
amazing audience as usual. So, let's start the hot discussion. I believe that it's big conflict today between the planning and the manufacturing, or the make team and the planning team. So, Hussein, the first question that came into my mind, and I'm asking also our audience, if you have something in your mind once we started the discussion, please go and interfere, and we'll jump into your question once we are done from that. So, Hussein, based on your experience, and I do believe that this time that we have, due to VUCA and uncertainty that we are surrounded with, what is the best characteristic, I would say, and based on the situation that we have today, as a factory manager, how can you deal with this kind of uncertainty that we have it today, especially with the business?
Very good question, Ahmed. So honestly, you remember the last interview together? It was a few weeks ago, and we discussed the VUCA situation that we're living in. And I mean, there's a lot of changes that's happening around us, and this is something that's becoming like a new norm now. Any leader in any business, and specifically when we talk about factory management, it's about being an entrepreneur, having the entrepreneurial mindset. If a factory manager will be looking only at his KPIs as measures, I don't think it will be a very successful mindset in the time being. I think it needs to be done in a way that it's balanced. So measures, and I always believe in KPIs. I always believe in managing the right KPIs, but as well, it needs to be properly balanced with looking at the big picture, which is the whole end-to-end business. So that's the mindset that I think needs to be there with every single plant manager or an operational leader or a factory leader in any business. I mean, there will be always two different businesses working in parallel, and this is at any cost. And there was always this kind of example that I always share with the teams. At any point of time, if you look at the demand coming from the demand, if you look at the demand planning, at any point of time, if you go to them and saying, okay, I need this SKU, demand need from this SKU, and in the same time, you go to the end of the line in the factory, and at the number of and the same quantities for the same SKU, be surprised. Always big difference between what's being asked and from what is used now. So the whole thing is about really looking at the whole business before taking isolations or working silos, basically.
Perfect, Hussein. I'm
talking only specifically about this topic. So from a mindset perspective, I mean, there's a lot of other things definitely, but I think this is the only one that will really can be related to our topic for today.
Perfect. So I'll jump into the core discussion. I love how you just have this structure, that how the factory manager should act and think in an entrepreneurial mindset. The first question that I will jump into it, I think we'll dig deep a little bit about that, because we want the discussion to be more hot, and people will interact with us right now. So if you are in the situation today as a factory manager, or at any manufacturing level, I would say, what could be the best way you can follow when there is a capacity constraint from the planning side? Let's say I give you an example here, that the planning, they came, guys, this is our unconstrained demand, and we need this, we have X millions, we have to sell it. But unfortunately, because the capacity that we have it at the factory, we'll have a gap of X million because of this capacity. What is your reaction? How you would think and how you would help the planning? What could be the following steps that you would have?
Okay.
That's a big question.
That's a short question, big answer.
Yes.
So I think, again, honestly, I do believe that MOQ is a great, is the most, I would say, formal excuse to do whatever you want as a plant director. Honestly, let's be, I promised you guys that we're not going to say textbook answers, correct?
Yes.
So MOQs, MOQs is something that it's a great excuse to decide which SKU do you want to have, which quantities do you want to have, and which SKUs you don't want to have, honestly. Because there is a lot of things that can be done on that front. The first question, probably I'll have one step back, Ahmed. I think the question is, how would you measure MOQ? How would do we discuss MOQs? The question is, do we discuss it in units or dollar value? Is it a discussion about technical discussion, or is it a financial discussion? And honestly, I see it's a financial discussion. It is a financial discussion because there is a lot of other options that can be done. And the second challenge that I put here for the audience, and we can have a discussion around it here, is MOQ fixed for a specific SKU or not? At any point of time of the year or not? So these are the questions, and the answer for me is definitely no. It should not be fixed because there is a lot of variables. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. In general, usually year on year, the prices of any SKU goes up, correct? And the production cost, the objective of any plant director, successful plant director, is to reduce the cost of conversion. And what's MOQ? MOQ is your break-even, basically. So it's the cost of what you're selling and the cost of your production, and they're changing every single year, every single month. So how come the MOQ are basically fixed for every single year? And this is kind of provocations that needs to be discussed basically. The second question is, it depends on the site and the factory and the type of manufacturing that's happening. There's a big difference about the different factories, because it's not about the conversion cost only of the factory. There's the fixed and the variable, which is a big variable in deciding what's your MOQ. So the higher your fixed and the lower is your MOQ, correct? The lower is your fixed. If the variable is higher, the MOQ is higher. So again, it's another factor of looking at the MOQs. So I think the point here is that MOQ is something that's very variable. It's very changeable. And I think we need to be looking at it in a bit of a different perspective. And honestly, my own experience, I discuss MOQs when I have a lot of capacities on the line. And this is where I start to say, you know what, guys, no, this is my MOQ, this is not my MOQ. And I start to agree or disagree on what I can put on the line, because I'm like 95% utilization. If I have a production line stopped, I don't discuss MOQs. I take whatever it takes, because there is no factory now, as we speak now, that's below 50% fixed cost. I don't know it, honestly. I don't know if 50% less than fixed cost. It depends on the manufacturer. Of course, I'm talking mainly about the FMCGs. So again, it's a good discussion. And there's another thing as well that we need to check. And sometimes I decide my MOQ as the MOQ of my suppliers, because if I have an MOQ from my supplier, this is my MOQ as well. So I don't put any, I don't change it. Correct? So these are the kind of tricks. You look at the MOQ and the variation and what needs to be basically pushed back.
It's sometimes, as Hussien, as you're saying, sorry to interrupt you, sometimes ties the people from the demand side and the sales to put any orders, this MOQ. So we as supplier manufacturer will tell them, you're not satisfying the MOQ, so don't waste our time.
Great point, Hamamsi. And I think this is spot on. This was my next point, actually. Thank you. You know it all. I mean, so MOQ cannot be discussed without the economic order quantity, the EOQ. And I don't want to get hooked here into terminologies. But if there is no, what is the right demand that needs to be taken? You know, the MOQ, the first thing in MOQ is the demand coming from the demand planners, basically. And you can go in different directions if you don't have a proper understanding what are the demand that's coming to you on your way. And again, it's back to the industry itself. So a factory that produces steel, glass, billet, definitely the MOQ will be like, I would like to have it's 365 days. I cannot stop the factory. I cannot stop the ovens, and I have to produce. If an FMCG, I mean, come on, guys, there's always a way out. Of saying, I don't have enough capacity to produce. Always a way out. honestly.
There is. We worked in FMCG. There is semi-finished goods you can keep stocks in and mix according to which market it's going on. So there is always a way out, right? In FMCG, you have flexibility. That's what's good, and also the manufacturing life of the product usually give you more flexibility in FMCG, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
And simplicity, guys. I mean, if you can look at the variance of, if you can look at the variance and the number of SKUs, that's the first discussion that needs to happen. Why do I have all of this? I remember back in some of these, like small consultancy for a factory in Egypt line, and the guys were like adding packaging machines, one for tela and one for glass. They keep adding packaging machines just for the sake of adding utilization, and this is the kind of the first decision that is being taken to kind of stop the. So why do you have all of these SKUs? Why don't you simplify? Sometimes the question is for the
rationalization. Yeah.
Correct. The question is, are we hooked in the KPIs? Are we into really the KPIs of the efficiency? If the cost per ton will go down, but if it will down, I say, you know what, I cannot take it because my efficiency will go in the wrong direction. This is a good discussion of understanding how do we define efficiency. So this is the kind of discussion that needs to happen as well in the factory. I think there's a bottleneck. Is the bottleneck in the line, in the factory, in the machine, and this is where you start talking with the maintenance, with the engineering team before going to the investment levels that usually needs to come at the later stage.
Yes, usually as we were discussing, sometimes as you said also for the job that you had as consultancy and all, the first thing is let's invest without thinking about solving the bottlenecks or trying to find a way over time, anything to stop this investment, and even check the demand, because the demand, maybe there is seasonality, maybe you have 2-3 months that you will use all the capacity, then 9 months you are free doing nothing or using 10 or 15 days of the capacity. So these are the things that should be addressed, I think, mostly in the S&OP between when balancing the supply and demand.
I can't agree more, Ahmed.
Yes, and I would say also, adding up to, for sure, all what you have done, it's amazing. What I'm saying, that business acumen for the factory managers, because I believe factory managers, maybe they are at the beginning of the upstream itself, but they are blinded away what's happening in the business. So business acumen itself, it can play a big role on taking the right decisions, because most people, as you said, Hussein and Hamamsi, most factory managers, they keep focusing only on one KPI. I don't care, I want my OEE to be the best, so
I want to reduce the costs.
Yes, I want to have a longer run. I want
the products that are easy to run on the factory, so they are just focus on there. They are not aligned with the vision of the company, or they just want to reduce the cost, as Hussein was discussing.
Exactly. But whatever action you are taking right now, I'm talking about from the MOQ point of view, just compare it with your cycle stock. What do I mean here? That any proper or a longer run, it will affect drastically your inventory levels. Because if I have, let's say, one MOQ will cover me like 7-8 months or something like that, and I say, guys, no, this is my MOQ. The planning will produce it, but at the end of the day, what will be the effect on the business? Because this is cash. It's almost your inventory. It's asset, right? But what will be that? It could be obsolete stock. It could be tends to be below shelf lifetime. Whatever. I'm talking also about the consumer goods industry. Whatever. All of this is also kind of risks. So just this rigid mindset should be changed, because once people, I believe that they understand what is the reason and what will be the implication if I do this, what will be it will affect which nodes in the supply chain, they will understand it. This is a point which I want to say, it's business acumen. And
100%, Ahmed, and 100%, and probably a build here. You know that MOQs, one of the variables of the MOQ is the stocks as part of that, because how much are you producing, how much from raw material are you getting, impacting, and it impacts your MOQ. But again, for FMCG, it should not be a big deal. I mean, everything needs to be coming as a negotiation, guys. I mean, supply and demand, there is always a discussion, the beauty of S&OP as well. If an MOQ comes to on your way, it doesn't make sense, this is where the S&OP will go back to the S&OP process, and this is where we discuss a proper discussion, supply and demand. For example, you have a season and you would like to pre-produce for some SKUs. Though I'll go for the S&OP asking, if you want this MOQ, please make sure that you reduce my existing stocks from the other, clear out the stocks from the warehouse so it doesn't impact my cash. I mean, this is a kind of discussion that needs to happen. It needs to happen, I mean, on a weekly basis, and it depends, and I'm sure that you guys know all of that. It depends on which cycle and which part of the S&OP is helping to is helping with that.
Yeah.
So a business acumen is very important, and there's one clear point here that you guys have been mentioned. Very important point: the KPIs and the dashboard. It is very important, and please, it's I want to be very clear about that. I don't let go my KPIs by any means. I'm a KPIs guy. So the question is, do we have the right KPIs or not?
Yeah.
Are we measuring the right KPI in the right time? Sometimes it's not the right time. If it doesn't make sense and there's contradiction with the bigger and the business acumen, like Ahmed was saying, it doesn't make sense with the P&L, which by the end of the day, it's not a charity, correct? It's a business. So if the KPI does not make sense with the P&L, this is the time to revise the KPI or deciding of posing one of the KPIs and introducing another new one.
Yes.
This is the kind of discussion needs to happen on a business level, which is back to the business acumen that you were just mentioning, Ahmed.
1000%, and I love how we put it in, because at the end of the day, it's all, there is a conflict. Let's agree, and that's why our role inside corporation to solve this conflict. But the game, it's not to be biased by your KPIs, and even 100%. It will overcome the business results, because at the end of the day, we are here to achieve financials, to achieve whatever we have based on the vision of the company itself. This is what do I want. One thing also, I want to have it like a story. The things that for MOQs, some people they will ask you that also. Hussien, I do believe when you define the MOQ, the first thing, if I'm in planning side, I need to understand why should I have MOQ and what is the reason of MOQ. And I'll give you an example on that point. When I used to work in the factory. And I understand the whole process end-to-end inside the factory itself. So when I moved into the supply planning for the same factory, I understand everything. When I stayed with the factory team, they defined the MOQs. And one of the SQs, I believe that there was, the coverage, it was 6 months based on the MOQ itself. And when I started to ask, they told me, this is the MOQ. I asked why. This is because of the continuous production. And because when you have the capability, understanding the process itself, I'm saying this for the planning team, to understand how the line is flowing from the make, from the pack, from everything in the flow itself, to understand it. Why I'm saying this? Because we solved this MOQ by one thing. We realized that the variant, I would say the bill of material, we have one of the variants. There are 2 SKUs, one regular and one promoted, okay? The regular and the promotion has the same MOQ, which is, they said it's minimum technical batch, okay?
Yeah.
So how did we solve it? You know what's the difference between the 2 SKUs? It's two totally different codes. How did we solve it?
Yeah.
Only by run strategy. I run this SKU, the regular one, and then we change the bundle and put the new the promotion itself in the bundle itself, and then run the line. The same packaging, only the difference, it's printed back. So there is no MOQ. There is no MOQ. We oversolve it. So these small things, I believe, because of understanding the flow and the process of line itself, and planning, make teams sit on the same table discussing all the challenge itself, they can solve many things.
100%. And again, Ahmed, I think what you're saying is the great discussion as well about ideas and how important is ideas to solve for a specific problem, which is MOQs. And again, guys, it's very important to understand MOQs is a direction by any means. It's not a fixed number. It is a direction. And it depends on the industry and the type of operation. So a job shop production, or a workshop production, where a guy gets a new shift to be opened for his workshop. Of course, there's an MOQ, and we cannot even debate about MOQ. A factory recruiting 1,000 person day in, day out, and the utilization goes up and down. A big challenge, why do you need MOQ if your fixed cost that high? So it really, if a factory is opening a new shift, instead of 2 shifts per day, a third shift, yes, there's an MOQ. So this is the kind of big directions that help saying, you know what, I need an MOQ. Specific example, what you're saying, Ahmed, yes, you don't need an MOQ. The question is, are you putting the right focus behind the right problem? Are we solving for the right problem or not? And this is basically how we see it. There's a small trick as well that you guys probably know about that. If a factory with 5, 6, 10 production lines, the cost of you don't have a proper SKU-based costing, correct? Usually,
Yes.
it's not that accurate. It's all about allocation. You're allocating your cost by line.
Okay.
So the question is, when you say this line, this MOQ for this line is X, how much did you allocate for that line in the first beginning, correct? So this is the kind of challenges and questions that needs to happen. And it's not a fixed number. It's a guideline to open the right discussion with the right stakeholders.
Yes, beautiful. I think we'll come back to our audience.
Yeah, let's go back to the audience. I see a lot of interesting comments and questions. Yeah.
Yes, I will jump into questions, guys, again, because the time that we have. So we have here, I will jump into Shadi. He's saying almost steel industries and cement and most of heavy industries are using MTS techniques. Make to stock for sure. Thank you, Shadi, for your interference. And guys, by the way, I'm asking you, please ask us any questions. We jump into it because of the time. So feel free to ask, feel free to interfere because I don't see too much questions. Ask us whatever you want. We have also Taha Larian. He's saying, speaking of cost per ton, how can we maintain targets while we are squeezed between recession and inflation? Okay, it's a very good question.
Yeah, so I think it's very good. And again, let's not fall in the trap of scale is key to improve my cost per ton, because I totally disagree with that. It's a big discussion. And thank you, Taha, for raising this question. Scale definitely is not, it's only one variable for improving your cost per ton. But honestly, a recession, variability, volatility of demand is a great opportunity for improvement, either small steps or either transformational improvement. And really the question is, are we producing the right SKUs? If you're asking it to be very specific to answer your problem, the question here, are you producing the right set of SKUs? Do you have, do you need all of these SKUs? 1 gram less or 1 gram more does not mean that you have a product in your SKU. A red color instead of the yellow does not mean that you should have another SKU. And this is where you have a proper discussion with the right management. And definitely, if you, for me, the way I do it, honestly, if I have this kind of volatility, my intention is to go less with my volumes to work 2 shifts instead of 3 shifts. That's one example. So it's another way around to look at it. It depends where you are and what you're having. If you have 3 production lines, stop one completely. And this is how you reduce, you simplify, you rationalize your production and make sure that you're focusing on the right things. Of course, this will come with some tough decisions, but this is how it works.
You reminded me of a lot of projects I worked on unifying labels and to lessen the SKUs and rationalizing SKUs based on profit. And then you find someone tell you, this is an old SKU, it's a strategic SKU, we cannot sacrifice this product and all this.
This is for our brothers and sisters for marketing. For sure, there is always conflict, but almost of the SKUs, it will be strategic. Once it comes to rationalization, it will be out of the market. It will be a strategic SKUs. That's why. Okay, I'll come back to our lovely audience. So I don't see too many questions right now, but once I see any question, I will jump into it directly. Sure. Okay, I have one question in my mind, Hussien. I believe that many factory managers are there online right now, but what could be the best way, if depends on our situation right now and this uncertainty that we face, what would be the best way to reduce the factory cost? from your perspective, if you're now as a factory manager, what would be the system thinking that you have in your mind to help them to reduce their cost accordingly?
Very good. Again, cost, there's two things when we talk about cost. Cost is cost reduction, efficiency in the way we do business. And this is a lot of KPIs are supporting that: efficiencies, changeovers, cost per utilization per ton, utilization per man hour. All of these measures are helping really to improve your cost per ton. But there is a big thing that is sometimes we don't really put a lot of focus on, is to variable. I mean, this should be an objective. I would put this as a first priority, even before the cost cutting or the cost efficiencies. Moving your fixed into variable will open a lot of room for big decisions that will have a bigger impact than the small changes that you do or the small KPIs. Moving it from a 90% fixed to 60% fixed is a complete different game. This is where you decide on your shifts, you decide on your number of lines, you decide on the warehouses. It's a different game. So a very short answer, I would really advise for the volatility, where there's a lot of volatility and production lines are up and down, depends on where we are in the months and where we are in the season. I would really look at the fixed and variable. And there's a lot of big and very important tools that can be used to. And the second thing, probably let's really depend on the ideas coming from the floor. And this is where the idea generation programs, this is where the ideas come from the line. I don't want to get into these common answers where all the TPM, all the lean tools and all the TPM stuff, the maintenance, looking at the KPIs in a different way. For example, 2 production lines at a downtime 10% and 10% does not mean that you're spending the same cost, by the way, from a maintenance perspective. Yes. Correct? If your mean time to repair and mean time between failure is different on 2 different lines, this is a completely different cost. Though both of them are downtime at 10%. So a proper understanding of the KPIs, double clicking on some of the important KPIs that we usually have in the meetings and discuss it without really understanding, it's another game as well.
Wow. Lovely. Okay. I will jump into another question. I think it came also in my mind when you speak about this. So in the current situation, and I do believe also factory managers, they face these things, to be flexible in as you said, just to move the fixed cost to be variable. Okay. So what's your opinion? Your opinion? I'm saying that I believe that labor cost is playing a big role inside the cost per ton, the conversion cost in most factories. Then it depends on the industry itself, but in your based on your philosophy or based on your experience, to shift this, the percentage, I would say you have a third party labors and the permanent labors at this point. Yes, casual labors or just permanent. If you're in this position today, what you will do, how much you will take, I would say the percentage of that labors in the casual and the permanent contract labor that you have, the permanent employee, based on what? Because it's a big question mark. How many labors in how many labors there?
Yeah, so Ahmed, there is no, honestly, there is no magic answer on this one, because it really depends on the industry and depends on the size of the factory, the different technologies in one factory. And there's a lot of big discussions on that front. The first point where you start talking about fixed and variable is to really understand where is the opportunities to shuffle production lines. And I think this is a key thing for me. So which line can produce what? Second thing is, like I said before, it's rationalizing your factory and really understanding what is needed to produce, and very important to have on the line, and what's not or less important. Analysis that needs to be happening. What's your base? I mean, like demand planning. What's your base and what's and down? And this is the kind of information that needs to be fed back to the demand side. And this is where you start challenging the different SKUs that keep coming, have the space to move from fixed to variable. Honestly, the last thing I use looking at is the labor side, but as well, I'm very selective when I say, okay, we need to hire. So it starts from the beginning. So do we need to hire? And why are we hiring? Why we're not using a crew from a different production on production line 1 and use this crew on the production line 2 instead of hiring new teams? Because honestly, if you look at it, the volatility now used to be 15%. I think the volatility now is not less than 30% as volatility that we're seeing here, especially on the FMCG side. Of course, it depends on the industry.
Thank you, Hussien.
Sometimes, yeah, I think you can also shuffle the labor and put them in another department if there is a high volatility of demand, just to exactly matrix organization, and you can upskill those people 100%. Instead of letting them go, for example.
100%. And Hanansi, thinking out of the box, the question is, and I'll give you a small example here. Why not doing some alliances with some other companies? The high season of chocolate, season of ice cream, correct? So why not having this? I mean, honestly, this is new. This is something that needs to be discussed with the right forums, with the right. We need to be looking at the bigger picture here, especially on the temp labors. Hiring and firing approach does not work, honestly. There's a lot of risk. There is a lot of risk that comes with that, especially with the food industry.
True.
Thank you. We have many questions in the GIT, I would say. So we have our friend Shadi Al-Jaki is saying, when can we say that chase strategy is better than level strategy?
I think this is a demand question more.
Take it, Ahmed. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. It depends on the demand. Actually, it depends on the product. So if you have product that has stable demand, so you will use level. If you have product that you have to chase the demand of something then it depends on the demand. If you're chasing the demand going ups and downs, it's risky, especially in these days, and there is high volatility. So it's very hard to use the chase strategy, where you will face a lot of problems in the stocks and all that. So it really depends, of course, in the industry, but I think it's more of a demand question. I don't know if you guys need to add something also on that.
I agree. I can just add one thing over that. I believe that it's more related into the downstream. It's not the upstream, but it's valid. It's still valid question. I believe it's all about the strategy itself, and the two things that you have to understand at this point. What is your baseline and cannibalization for each forecasting unit, and the promotion itself? Based on that, I'm talking like a zoom out view. Based on that, you can say that is it chase or is it level strategy? Because this will give you like an eye. If I have, let's say I have a baseline of 20% and my promotion it's 80%, it will be totally different if I have it's 80% baseline and 20% promotions. So
I think most of the time, Ahmed, we're using like hybrid strategy. So for some SKUs, for example, depending on the ABC or depending on the 80-20, we're using this strategy, and for others, we're using level. So it's a mix always. Hussein, what do you think about that? You're expert in everything, so I can ask you in supply, demand.
Not really.
Reference in everything.
Not true. No, I think you guys had the perfect answer. No.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hope that we answered you, Shadi. We'll jump into the next question. We have Hazem Hafiz Ragab. He's saying that, would you please give example for moving fixed cost item to variable investment?
Spare parts for your machine, consignment stocks. That's one for you. Outsource your services. Honestly, do you really need to have services in-house? Let's look at it from a different perspective. I mean, transportation, for example. I know companies till now, they're not outsourcing their transportation for their labor and their employees. So why would you do that? Why don't you outsource the maintenance of your chillers, for example, for a factory? So again, this is the kind of, I mean, it comes with a higher cost, but I mean, this is not the discussion here. The discussion is, if I have enough volumes, if my factory is properly utilized, I'm perfectly fine to pay 10-15% more, but for a variable cost. It makes a lot of difference. Mathematically, it makes a lot of difference. So there's a lot of examples that moving from fixed to variable, and the question is, are we willing to take these discussions? Are we willing to put this into the table? And small things can make a lot of difference, by the way. And again, depends on the industry. That would be, I mean, co-manufacturing in general. I mean, why would you invest? Why would you invest in your factory if you co-man? If you can co-man, basically, why would you invest in co-man if you can rent a line? This is the kind of question that needs to be raised. Getting assets, getting people, very wise. On the short term, yes. On the medium, longer term, definitely it will be a problem that we'll have to face at later stage. Hopefully, Hazem, I answered your question.
I think it's a perfect answer.
Very clear, very clear. Yes, thank you, Hussein. I will jump into the next question. Our friend Ahmad Al-Shafi'i, he's asking, how can we manage MOQs while we are outsourcing production of some our products? How do we decide trade-offs between manufacturing products internally versus outsourcing while staying in control? I think it's very beautiful. Yes, very, very nice question about that.
Probably outsourcing is what? Outsourcing is co-manufacturing or outsourcing from or importing? I
believe it's like something between make or buy. I would say
yes.
Make or buy.
Make or buy decision. I think.
Yes, make or buy decision. I think it's a good question for that.
Okay. Definitely. I mean, so what? So should we when should we decide to go outside of producing in-house? So this is the way I interpret the question.
I believe yes. Insourcing versus outsourcing.
I mean, if you have a line and goes up to 100%, I mean, don't fall into the mistake of 85 because the volatility goes up and goes down. And all of these discussions, guys, this is not what we're here for. We're just giving the whole true fact here. And yes, be short in production. And yes, at some point of time, say, okay, you know what? I only managed to give you 90% case fill. I'm perfectly fine with that. After the 100%, start co-manufacturing. And this is where you decide on that before ticking few boxes that we just talked about earlier in this discussion. Rationalize your products. Make sure that you have the right SKUs, the right changeover matrix between SKU and SKU. So this is very important as well. Make sure as well that the crew, basically who are working, are capable crew. Make sure that your line is efficient enough. I mean, don't go for co-man if you have a 70% efficiency. Come on. So there's a problem in-house that needs to be solved before deciding on co-manufacturing. Understand properly your bottleneck. Is your bottleneck, it's kind of a debottlenecking, like I need to increase the servo motor? I mean, come on. So why would I go for a co-manufacturing? If the problem is a small machine with a couple of $1,000 that I need to solve for, then this is probably something that I will pay. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
I'm not sure even how to mute. So
no, we can hear
you. This is basically.
It's okay. You can go ahead. It's not a big noise.
Anyway, so I think this is all these boxes needs to be ticked before deciding on co-manufacture, on going outside. If there is no line in-house and the decision between co-man and new production line for a new product, definitely go for co-manufacturing.
Great. Yes.
I think it's to the point, very clear. I would add just one thing over and above. I believe also it's about the business strategy itself, because I would say make or buy, it depends on the business strategy. If the business strategy itself, I'm looking to reduce the cost itself, so you have to look into the landed cost. I would say, look at it. Is it better for you to have it outsourced and see the landed cost versus the total cost that you will have it if you have the local manufacturing itself? This is one point. And if you are, I'm talking about the MOQs, I believe it plays a big role. That's why we spoke about it, Ahmad, at the beginning, that MOQ should be treated very carefully and understanding what is the challenge. And I try to understand your question till now, but if it's something that you need to clarify more, please ask us more question if we didn't get, because the question is very challenging.
It's very challenging, and it's also, like you're saying, it depends on the vision of the company. Sometimes the company wants to open a totally new business. So, for example, as Hussien was saying, if it's something that you don't want to invest or start, so you can outsource this business as a start, or you're going to a totally different industry, tapping into different industry to increase your profitability. So there is a lot of to discuss in this point. It's not only about factories, and it's not only about, it's very strategic, I think, and it's a great question from Ahmed Shafi.
Yes.
Happy to explore it further, Ahmed, if you want to as well.
Thank you. Please let us know, Ahmed, if you have any further questions. So till we jump into another questions, I have something in my mind, Hussein, which is, we'll come back to the same point, which when you have a permanent constraints, I wouldn't speak about rough cut capacity planning, but I would say on a higher level, when there is on a specific resource, there is some constraints, because I would say that capacity utilization, it moved into the risk zone. I would say 85%, sometimes 100%, sometimes 120%, all of this. What is the best way, I believe that based on your experience, what is the best way to deal with these things? Are you willing quickly as a factory manager to go and move into CAPEX? Guys, yes, there is a red zone here. Please let me know. You move into that quickly, or what do you think from your experience?
No, honestly, a short answer, no, I don't do that. And definitely the last thing I would like to have is to increase my assets in the factory more and more. Because by the end of the day, a very efficient factory will definitely have volumes later on more and more on the medium and longer term. An asset per ton, it is a KPI by itself as well. The footprint of a factory, the utilization of footprints is the KPIs. And these KPIs usually is not discussed enough. So like I said, I mean, there's a lot of things that needs to be done. And the last thing comes at the end. Yes, I would like to have a new CAPEX or a new production line, new machines. And honestly, I would do that. I'll give you a magic number. It's a magic. This is the way I read numbers. 30 to 40% higher than my existing capacity. I would start having a discussion about CAPEX.
This reminds me of something, Hussein. Sorry to interrupt you. Sometimes when this is known that there is some constraint or some capacity, you'll find some a lot of sales orders coming on this area. So this is the kind of conflicts that happen and should be solved in sales and operations. So sales will be trying to get to production these orders, so you cannot supply us. Sometimes these orders are not true. Let's be honest. Sometimes these are fake orders or something like that, to cover that they are not reaching their budget, and this is because I lived through these kind of discussions and these kind of challenges. So we must also be sure that this demand is true, or this is not like fake demand or something that is made up, or orders that will not come at the end after 100%. Making this CAPEX will not fulfill the capacity. This just came to my mind.
Yes.
No, 100%. I fully agree. I mean, there's a lot of noise. Come on, guys. The numbers in any business, in your own business, in a big company, there's a lot of noise in the numbers. So let's make sure first, before we're deciding on investing, that the numbers are lean. There's no fats in these numbers. And the example that comes to my mind as well, honestly, I was always lucky to have different great teams, especially on the factory side, talking about that matter specifically. And when I talk about 100% utilization for the months, it's perfectly fine, because 100%, it's perfectly fine. It is already including my maintenance shifts, whatever you do. But again, if you go and ask the team and go to the factory, guys, I have 100% utilization, I need 10% more from you. And you just go back to your office or to your desk. It's done. Honestly, it's done. There is always a way out. Small tips and trips. I mean, 15, 20%, no, this is a joke, kind of. There's a problem with the way we're measuring capacity here. But again, 10%, there is always something to be done. So why would you have a 10 hours maintenance shift in a high utilization months? So go for 8. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
You will have many other months that will come. You can use 14 hours of maintenance.
Yes.
And this is the kind of flexibility that needs to be discussed.
Yes.
I'm just giving an example here. A small whoop, work in progress, can do the job. No, for 10%. So all of these small tricks and small tips can make a lot of difference, especially before deciding on buying new assets.
Yeah. So I have also lovely story about that, and I tell you that most probably that every decision it comes to the business strategy itself. So I'll give you an example that there was one SQ, and I love what Hamamsi was speaking about about the sales, how they will find something.
Manipulate this. Yes.
So I love sales. I love people in sales. So there is no harm about that at all. But I'm talking authentically. What I would say, once there is any constraint, they know that there is a capacity constraint always on a line, something like that. Guys, we have orders here. We didn't achieve this. We have a problem. But I'll tell you why I'm saying this specific example, because the lack of business acumen. I'll give you an example. There was one SQ, okay? And this SQ, we have always a constraint, always constrained every month, which we're losing as top line sales, X amount of millions, okay, for this category. And at one point of time, people said, we need to invest, we need to have CAPEX. We are losing demand, we are losing. And based on the category strategy, we are looking into the margin. I'm not talking about profit, I'm talking about the margin, okay? So when we jump into this conclusion for this SQ, we realize that yes, we will have a CAPEX, okay? Have this CAPEX, but it will be totally accountable, and costing-wise, it will be totally accountable under this SQ. And this SQ, once when we had this in the P&L, we realized that this SQ has a margin of 21%. Okay, we're losing. And when you put this depreciation, what will happen? It will be a negative margin. You got so because you will allocate, because this line will be fully dedicated for this SQ.
For this SQ only, yeah.
So yeah, why should I invest at the end of the day? Let it be like that, unless there is something. That's why the Bible, I would say the Bible for the business, it's coming back to the strategy itself. Yes, it could be constrained, and we are all we know that there is a constraint, and we know where it will take us. That's why demand, please. I need
you need bigger study, size of the market. You need to go to size of the market, prioritizing the markets that you're selling in. There is a lot of things. Yeah, go Hussien, please.
And the margin of the SQ itself, and the margin. If 60-70% margin SQ, I would do anything to produce it, even if it's like 2 cases.
True.
Correct.
True.
Yes.
I mean, if the margin of the product now itself, and again, is a very small quantity, this is where the questions need to be raised. And again, I think, to be very honest and balanced as well, I think the problem is that by the end of the day, a factory is quite a constrained environment, I would say. The demand is not, and this is where the challenge comes on our way always. And this is where I see that you guys, as an S&OP experts, I think you guys play a great role in getting these two together and making sure that the balance is there. And putting the business acumen side of things, I think this is where the S&OP, any good business should have this process as part of the balance that they're looking for.
Thank you, Hussien. Ahmad Shafi, he confirmed that the question was clear. So thank you, Ahmad.
Great, Ahmad. Thank you so much.
I will jump into the next question. So we have Karim El-Komi, co-manufacturing, how to control the quality of other side. It's a lovely question.
Hussien, the king of quality.
What's Karim? I think it's very straightforward. And in my early career, I used to do this job. Okay, so I was working for a company that they used to produce and export different SKUs and different manufacturing products. I mean, starting from agriculture side, metal work, textile, polypropylene bags, and they didn't have one single factory, and the guys were dealing with millions. And I think there was another question here about the Egypt co-man, and that probably it will be coming on the way, and maybe this is answering the question as well. So I think in Egypt now, this is coming more and more popular, the co-manufacturing. And I mean, the answer is, invest in getting a resource on the line of the co-man or the co-pack staying there as part of your contract.
True.
End of the line, quality checks or batch checks when the product comes on your way or when it's exported, it's too late, my friend. So this is why co-manufacturing doesn't work. If you want to co-man, get a high quality, reliable resource staying there for the 3 shifts, not only 1 shift. Staying there, making sure that the quality is produced as per the required standard, and stops the line if it doesn't. And this should be part of the contracts from the first place.
Yes,
and this was used to be my job like 18, 19 years ago.
Wow.
Yes, it's like what
enjoying stopping lines.
Yes. I like, manufacturing quality and maintenance always has a conflict.
Also, I did this in marketing. I used to go and check on the line and to check the quality because it's the image of the brand. And I used to go with the team, so I'd go with someone like Hussien or something as part of the marketing to check. Yeah, so yes,
very important.
It is very important because it's the image of the brand at the end. If you have like the shrink wrap is easily cut or whatever, the printing does not look good, or you're hurting the image of the brand.
Reputation.
Or it's not consistent, because if you're using different co-manufacturers, you must have also consistency on the quality of the colors and all that.
That's why I wanted to say it again. It's all about many companies, big companies, even at this point when they co-manufacture, they focus, in one point, which is the cost. I don't
exactly.
Reduce
the cost.
There is a brand image. It will hit the equity of the brand itself if you don't have the proper quality inspection at the right time. So they will say, guys, he is good. This co-packer or this co-manufacturer is good. He has this capability. But then if there is any problem in the market, you will have a big losses in your brand reputation. That's why it's very nice question from Karim.
One complaint from a customer can cost you a lot, and hundreds. Maybe than what you save
from the market.
And the beauty of co-man and co-pack and co-manufacturing is that are very, very focused in doing what they do best. I mean, if you co-man a specific product, the probability, by the way, it's the other way around. The risk is less, honestly. The question is, do we have the right communication with this co-man? Are we having clarity on what we're expecting from quality? Because honestly, quality is not KPIs and measures that you give a piece of paper. This is your quality parameters produced with these quality parameters, and that's it. It's about a bit of training. It's the learning curve. And once the guys are there, I mean, this is what they do for years and years. So why the challenge will be higher versus you as a business who put getting a new product in place and starting from scratch, getting the learnings and getting your own learning curve in place, basically.
Yes.
So I mean, great opportunity. I mean, from a co-manufacturing and co-packing perspective, as a mindset, and like you guys said previously, I do think it needs to be part of any strategy time being, especially with this volatility that we're facing.
Yes, thank you, Hussien. You put it on the spot.
Yes.
Yes. So I will come to the next question. We have too many engagement today. So we have Abdurrahman Nawar. He said, I believe that co-packing and co-manning is great for new markets, product testing. But is it sustainable on the long term, especially in Egypt?
Yeah, this is the question that you were highlighting before.
Yes. Answer is yes, with the right management of the co-man, because managing a co-manufacturing or a co-producer or co-packer, there's a science behind it. It's not like process. It's a contractual process that needs to be very clear, with the right penalties, with the right KPIs, with the right pay for performance, with the right resources from your side on their side. And yes, longer term, I mean, there's a lot of business who are still so far. I just gave example like a few minutes ago. For years and years, I used to work for a company who are only producing and exporting products only from co-man for years. So and this was like 18 years ago. So I mean, it works perfectly fine. The only thing that we need to watch out if there is an innovation or a novelty of an idea, and what's the risk of this confidentiality goes out. And again, there is a contract, and this needs to be very clear in the contract. and clear penalties as well if the idea is going to be used outside.
Great.
Very well. We have another, I think it will be the last question.
Yeah.
Just more 2 questions. Okay.
Let's be generous.
Okay. So we have Muhammad Fauzi. He's saying one of the most important outputs of a good sales and operation planning process is a final agreed, I would assume it's production plan, not
I
to be
think so.
changed
I think
after
production
that.
plan.
Yes, we have a critical issue.
Yes, he's talking, I think, about the frozen period and having like 3 months, for example,
love
frozen period.
Yes, I love this question. I love this
Yeah, I
question.
love this question because you suffered from this question a lot, and you suffered from the changes in the plan.
Yes, but let me. I'll excuse me, Hussein and Hamsi, if I want,
Yes.
because I love this kind of conflicts, and I was in the same place on that.
Yeah.
So, Muhammad, I'll tell you my experience on that. So, everyone right now, due to the uncertainty, if you want really to be to compete with the competition that we have right now in the marketplace, you have to be agile. And now the definition of agile supply chain and resilient supply chain, it's well known right now. So
Yes.
I understand the challenge that you have, that you have to have production frozen horizon for, let's say, 1 week. I will fix it regardless, but I want you to focus from the other side. It's the downstream itself, because if you're working like make to order replenishment, whatever you have, it will affect drastically your service level with your distributor or with your customers. So you have to be very flexible. And looking even, I would say, replenishment on a daily basis. I see and I know companies, they put their production plans only 2 days ahead, and they change it. The open frozen horizon, it's the 3rd day, because they see it on a daily basis. They run the replenishment and they put the production plan accordingly. This is the fixed 2 days. So I know that it's a big hassle for you to change the production plan. I will sit in that day. I will sit with this planning and manufacturing. I will freeze like 2 weeks. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I want you to look into the other side. What if there is SQ forecast will never be right? What if there is SQ is oversold or something like that? It will affect the service level at your company. That's why I'm saying production frozen horizon. You have to
Muhammad Fauzi will not like you, I think.
I know. But let me be very authentic, because
I will tell you, give me a good forecast. Give me it's the job of the demand planning to give us and the sales to give us good forecast.
That's why forecast will never be right. Let's agree on that. That's why I'm saying that agile supply chain and agile thinking and flexible thinking, this is the right way. And I totally agree. And I was in the your place, and when I stayed with the production planning and the planning team, I said, look, I will have only 1 week. And even if we stay with the production team, and even Hassan, he can confirm that, if I speak, I have only 1 week. I will have 2 days plan, and I will tell you the third day. It doesn't make sense. But this is how, if you want to have a giant supply chain, and if you have to get out of this rigid thoughts. This is my view.
No, I mean 100%. I can't agree more. I mean, it's all about agility. It's all about being flexible, and the mindset of being fixed on a plan doesn't work because nobody can control the demand. Honestly, with the right balance, and the balance here is that there is a responsibility and accountability on the demand to make sure that they're putting the right building blocks, making sure that they're looking at historical information, doing the analysis. Without
ABC analysis, the XYZ analysis,
without being influenced by the aspiration of tomorrow. And if this is happening, and the guys did the job, and you can always go back and ask, why do I have this fluctuation? And you got all the answers, all the analyses are done. I mean, there's no complaint that needs to be happening here. But if the job is, the due diligence basically is not happening, I think this is where you need to take care of it, Mohammed.
I think it's part also of collaboration and S&OP and meeting every month, every week between the sales and demand, supply and demand, and the supply to be aware of the kind of the business and what's happening, the volatility of demand. The kind of conflict comes when they are blind, the supply and the production team. They don't see what's happening in the market, so that's why they get frustrated, I think.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, totally agreed. So I will have another 2 questions. One question, Yes,
you're too generous
one
today.
question will take it from Hassan, and another question I will ask it to Hussein, and خلاص we'll
Okay.
solve it. Okay?
Okay.
معلش. Okay? So we'll jump into our friend Hassan Arifi, because he was
Hassan,
keen,
like
yes,
Hassan.
he was keen to come today. So he's asking a lovely question. He was asking co-packing versus pricing, sometimes contradicting. And it is consumer related if they use the promotion. What do you think? So co-packing
Well,
versus
first, great to have you, Hassan, and great to hear from you.
Yes.
Versus sometimes contradicting, and it's consumer related if they use to promotion. What do you think? I mean, if I understand the question, we're talking about here the pricing from the co-packer, and how this is helping. I mean, the co-packer, probably it's a case by case, honestly, and I think there is no magic answer. I think it's a very good question, Hassan. My only advice here that we need to look at our co-packers and co-manufacturers as an extension of our business.
Yeah.
If the co-packer cannot give you the right flexibility of pricing up and down and making sure that you have a setup, financial/legal setup to change your pricing as you go through the process,
Yes.
depending on your promotions, calendar. I mean, this is probably you're not the best scope. There's a bit of challenge as well on the legal side of the business that needs to be checked. They need to check basically the contract with the co-packer. I know that this is if I understand the question right, and hopefully I did, I think this is where it's all about the contractual side of the business, or different SKUs. I mean, you can fluctuate different SKUs with different codes, and you can always keep changing depending if you want to give a discounted SKUs or not. Again, great to see you, Hassan.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Hassan.
Hassan.
Hussein, for this. I will ask the last question. I will not ask you more two questions, but it's the last question. So that we
أنا
have.
ولا حمامسي؟ مين حمامسي؟
You, Hussein. I will ask you this question. So I know that you're right now that you are consulting factories and manufacturing entities. The factories that. So can you please let us know what are you doing and how you are helping people on that point? If you have something in your mind, you can share it with us.
I think it's. I mean, the consultation. I mean, this is becoming. Very popular now. Everybody's consulting. So to be very honest and transparent. So what I do is very clear. I mean, whatever I say with you guys, I just put it into action. And I mean, sometimes it's all about the diagnosis of the problem that takes a lot of time. And I mean, the solution, it will come very naturally later on. That's basically one of the things. Second thing, I mean, as well, I mean, there is a very clear processes as well that can be used, very clear tools that comes to the consulting process. So consulting is not new for me. I used to do this for years and years now. And I do it for the whole, so I have a team, I have we have an office kind of legal entity with my brother, and we do it end to end. It's the whole business, so it's not only supply. It's the whole business. He's taking care of the rest of the business parts, and I mean, this is where we have we contribute in the continuous improvement and the development of the factories and the business in general. But does not mean that I will charge you guys for every single information that you will take. I mean, whoever is on the session and wants to ask a question, please feel free.
Thank you, Hussein. So just the last thing, it's two questions, right? It's not one question. Let me ask you, if people they want to connect with you and they want to ask you, what will be the proper way to connect with you?
I mean, LinkedIn is great. I can definitely on your post for this forum, I'll share extra details with you, Ahmed, and if you can add it as part of your comments as well, that would be really great, you and Ahmed. And my last word, can I say my last word for this one? Guys, I wish you best of luck. I mean, I'm very impressed of your progress, of what you guys, of the level of activities, the value that you're sharing, the spirit. I mean, this is great. And I think best of luck. S&OP community and the rest of the forums. This is not the only forum. I know that. I know that you're doing a lot of things in the background as well. And I mean, this is great momentum. So keep it up and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Really, it's a pleasure. And let me tell you that seriously, the amount of values that personally I took it today from a manufacturing point of view, I didn't have it before. About how we think the structure that we take an action seriously. Thank you for these great values that you drove it today, and I believe many people behind the scenes they had the same thoughts and the same feelings that we have it. I would like to thank you for your amazing time. Really appreciate what you do.
My pleasure.
I appreciate also the people who attend today. They took the valuable time and engage with us. It means a lot to us. And also, I would like to appreciate Mr. Hamamsi for being.
Thank you so much. And I think that's the beauty.
Great job, Allah.
Thank you so much, Hussien. That's the beauty of the global S&OP community. We have, as we said, knowledge that's not in the books, and we have here our friends who are coming. As we said, me and Ahmed, we don't know everything and everything about the S&OP, so that's why we're having experts and great experience like Hussien, our friend here. He's really enriched our knowledge, and I think I'd like to thank also all the people who came and asked and give us all this time. So thank you for all the audience, and thank you, Hussien.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you next week, and thank you, Hussien, again for your amazing time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Take care.